Hello everyone, and welcome to our monthly MasterMine Tips and Tricks webinar series. Glad you could join us. Rob Macklack will be presenting today on how to track leads through your sales stages. As a reminder, these webinars are held on the third Thursday of every month, and we would like for your help to steer the direction of future webinars. Just post your questions, suggestions, and ideas on our MasterMine users group on LinkedIn. So let's go ahead and get started. Take it away, Rob.
All right, thank you, Carnegie. And I'd like to also add my thanks to everyone for joining us this morning, longtime MasterMine users and just recent ones. Today, our main topic is how to track leads through sales stages. And I'm going to walk you through a few possible scenarios for tracking stages in GoldMine. As many of you probably know, there are in GoldMine a lot of different possible ways of doing that. And I'm not going to prescribe a single way to do this, but I'm going to go through some scenarios and talk about various ways that you can use that information, use that tracking of the stages to manage your sales process. So just a few notes before we get started, and Carnegie referred to this as well. You can suggest future webinar topics in a number of different places. The MasterMine users group on LinkedIn is probably the best one. We're trying to build up that users group as a community area where you can share ideas, start discussions, essentially kind of build up your MasterMine knowledge and familiarity with other MasterMine users. And that should be, a helpful thing for you, for really all of us along the way. And don't be shy when you go to LinkedIn and just do a search on MasterMine users group. Don't be shy to start your own discussion. You can use this to get ideas, opinions, help from other MasterMine users. And specifically with regard to these meetings, you can also submit future topic suggestions within that group, as I think there's fairly obvious ways of doing that, or you can just put them in as discussions, and we'll sort of pick up on those discussions and include those in our end user meetings. You will also get, just in case you don't wind up going out to LinkedIn, that you will also get in the follow-up email from this session a link both to the LinkedIn group as well as a survey that you can put in your opinions both about this meeting as well as future ones. And then the last thing is, don't forget to share the recording from this meeting with others in your company. We regard these as good ways, as a good way to pass around more knowledge within your organization about MasterMine, because we want you to get the maximum usage out of MasterMine, and it's not just a single person application. It's one that's really meant to help you share information among different users and to actually share capability among different users. So next month in this time slot, we're going to do a more open format kind of end user session. So this time we're talking about a very specific thing, tracking leads through sales stages. What we wanted to do is give a try to see whether you as users out there have questions or specific little things you'd like to learn more about. It can be very simple things. I will take your specific how-to questions and discuss various MasterMine functions and techniques based on those. And if you want to help decide what's covered, just submit your suggestions in the LinkedIn group or email me your ideas or put them in the survey at the end of this session. I will cover the ones that you folks ask, and I'll mix in some of my favorite techniques and tricks with MasterMine at this next session. So hopefully it'll be lively and somewhat more interactive than these usually are. And I'd like to be able to kind of build on that component. Just in terms of making it be more useful and relevant to what specifically our users want to do, we think this is the direction that we want to go. So whether your questions are anything ranging from workbook sharing and handling to template selection at the beginning end of the process, right down to specific report writing tricks like date range grouping, and selecting and handling and presenting numeric values and adding missing fields, any of the things, any of the functionality that's built into MasterMine, anything related to that, go ahead and ask, post the questions. We may, if it's too specific to what you do, we may come back to you one-on-one, or we may, if it's more broad, we may include it in the group discussion. So look forward to getting your requests and seeing what you're thinking about in MasterMine. So those are just my quick introductory remarks there. So here's our agenda for today. I'll briefly go through some ideas for tracking sales stages in GoldMine, as I mentioned. If you're not already tracking stages at all, you may find this helpful for getting started just thinking about how you're going to use GoldMine better generally. If you already do track sales stages, hopefully you do it in some similar way or some way that I'm going to touch on here using these techniques that I suggest here, and the discussion of reports and data management issues that flow from that will then be useful for you too. I'd love to get your thoughts along the way, so please don't hesitate to post questions and comments in the questions dialog in GoToWebinar there. So for the most part, you probably have your GoToWebinar dialog minimized over on the right-hand side, but you can unminimize it just to get to put in the questions and then send it back. Let's see. So, and if I don't address your questions, as they come up here, Carnegie will jump in and at appropriate times here to let me know that I've missed a question, and we'll try to address it right then. So, Carnegie, that's your job. We'll do a series of reports and talk about how to actively use this information to interact with GoldMine and help the sales process along through the stages. So we have also at the end here a special treat. That's the bottom item there. For those who stay with us through the entire webinar today, at the end, if you're still on, you will automatically be entered into our drawing, which we will do right then, to select completely at random an attendee who will get a free one-hour session with me online doing really whatever MasterMine-related work you would like to do, report writing, data management, maybe just helping you get more adept at using some MasterMine function generally. So stay tuned through the end of the webinar to get your shot at the free one-hour session. And now let's switch over to GoldMine and talk about tracking sales stages and some various ways we've seen people track and manage them in GoldMine. So I think I'm able to do this. And there we are. Okay, so you should be seeing our standard demo database here. And so let's first talk about some things that for many of you might be kind of old hat, and for some of you it's going to be new. So I want to get through it fairly quickly here. Different ways of tracking stages. Now, the most sort of common and obvious one, if you sell one time to each prospect in your database, or you have one major sales process that is sort of your new customer getting process, then you can track stages various different ways. And the most common and easy way to track that stage would be a field such as the one that I'm pointing at here, sales stage, which in this case actually has a sort of a standard simple 7-step, or actually really a sort of a 6 or a 5-step sales process here, starting usually in this case with unworked. Now, the way we set up these lookups here, you enter this process at the 20 stage, not at the 0 stage, obviously. And if you are quickly disqualified, or dead would usually mean not actually physically dead, but completely out of the realm of possibility of buying your product, you'd move back to a 0. You could become a 10 if you're unlikely for some reason because you're just very lowly, or not very qualified, but still in some broad way still qualified. In this case, 20 would be unworked, and 21 is a variation on unworked. 25 at the qualified stage, 30 for advancing along toward a sale, 40 for maybe they were advancing but stalled, 50 active customer, 60 inactive customer. Now, these are just in a way, they're almost placeholders here. You have your own sales process. There's one actually that's built into you. It was built into the demo of GoldMine when you got it, in fact, a similar sort of set of sales stages. We're not going to recommend the actual specific stages that you use, but we do definitely recommend that you keep track of some sort of a methodology for your sale. that you have a methodology and that you keep track of where each lead is in the stages, for reasons that will become pretty easily apparent when we start looking at the ways of reporting on it and coming back to these. So I just have these in here as a sample set. So in this case, sales stage is a user-defined field that's been added to the top screen here in GoldMine. Now, oftentimes you might want to have that down under your Fields tab or one of your versions of your Fields tab, but so that's going to be sort of scenario number 1 is a sales stage there. By the way, one of the advantages of using a contact level field for your sales stages is that you can actually log changes to the sales stage. So why is it important to log changes? Well, as you can do with any field in GoldMine, when you log changes, what it essentially does is each time you make a change to the field, it creates a new history record indicating that a change was made to that field, what the old value was, what the new one is, what date that happened, who did the change, and all of that information can be used for in your reporting, in your MasterMine reporting, so that you can identify who's moving people along through stages, how long are your leads sitting in each individual stage. Is a good deal of analysis that can be done. So, and I'll mention that logging feature again here in a moment. So, second place where that is a common place to put sales stage, and this is a somewhat less formal way of doing it, is to actually use your scheduled activities, whether it's a pending call or an actual forecast sale. So if you've got, if you do forecast sales in GoldMine, which, in my experience, I've seen maybe a third of the GoldMine using organizations out there actually use this mechanism for actually doing forecasts. When I say this mechanism, I mean forecast sale records or scheduled sale records on the pending tab until a sale happens, and then when the sale happens, you actually complete the sale into history. Probably a third of GoldMine users that I've seen out there actually use this process. This actual sale that we're looking at here is a quote that was generated from QuoteWorks, and in the case of QuoteWorks, it automatically populates the activity code field with QTE. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open this up. A pending sale record, as any pending activity in GoldMine, has an activity code field. It's labeled code, not activity code. And don't confuse it with the field that's labeled activity, which is the one that says whether it's a sale or a call or an appointment or so on. But this field is actually at the back end called the activity code, and in MasterMine reports it's called activity code. And you can actually use this also as your stage value to indicate where they are along the way in the sale. And I'm going to contrast that here with probability here in a moment. But so if you are using the activity, and I don't think our code's in here right now, so our activity codes here are used for a different purpose in this scenario here. They actually indicate the type of purchase that they're going to make. So this is a way of differentiating also. You can do stage here, or you can use it for things like the category of product or service that they're going to buy from you, or the actual specific product. It all is, whatever is appropriate to your sales situation. And by the way, the whole reason I can't tell you exactly how you should do this in GoldMine is that GoldMine is very flexible, of course, and everybody's sales process is different. These are just some suggestions. Now, why not use the probability field as your stages? Well, if they're, because if they're 10% of the way, then that's one stage. Maybe they're 50% of the way. That's more likely. If they're 90% of the way, they're about to buy from you. Maybe you consider that your sales stages. I typically preach against that and say, that since it's really just sort of a broad estimate anyway, in some ways, in some sales situations, that makes sense. But for the most part, their likelihood of buying from you is not the same thing as where they are in the sales stage. They might be very likely to buy from you, but you just talked to them for the first time this morning, or they may be extremely highly qualified and likely to work with you. They just talked to you this morning and they're still at the first stage. That doesn't make them a 90. And if you put them in as a 10, at least in this scenario, I would consider that much less likely. Probability is the likelihood they'll buy from you. Stage, whether it's here or anywhere else, is what do they know about your product and how far along are they through your methodical sales process. And those are two very different things. You can use them very well in combination in MasterMine reports. And again, some reason that people don't actually use them separately in two different ways is that they don't feel like they can actually make use of that information because they don't have MasterMine. They don't have a good, easy way to sort of correlate both the likelihood and the where they are in the sales process toward making a sale, and that's too bad because they have much less useful information than you have if you use these things in combination. So I think that's all I'll preach about as far as that's concerned. So that is another option. Now that's in forecast sales. Sometimes you don't use forecast sales. Sometimes you use the call records for doing that purpose. And again, there's the activity code for indicating stage here. There's also the possibility of using the priority field. And this is one, again, well, I think I've mentioned priority fields in the past. This field usually says time if it's set for a specific time of day that you're going to be calling them. If you're using it for that purpose, then obviously this is not available for indicating the stage. But if you have the kind of sales process where you set appointments or you set calls to call somebody a certain day, but you don't have a particular day that you're going to do that as you're closing in on selling, then you might use this field for your for your sales stage. And the stage, your stages may be A, B, C, D. Again, as I've mentioned in the past, this could also be an indication of A, B, C, D. Is this, how qualified are they as a prospect for you? So yet more places to put those. Now let's go on to the additional place where in GoldMine it's actually built in, and that's of course in opportunities. So if you've got an opportunity in GoldMine, then or if you work with opportunities in GoldMine already, then you know that there is a stage field that's in here, explicitly labeled as such, and you can use that. And again, you can set up your lookups for that and stay within a certain track that you've prescribed for your salespeople. And MasterMine will do reporting across all of this stuff, and I'll come back and show you some example reports using the different types here. We have there's two kinds of very good logging that you can do from here, what I call stage logging. One is it's possible to just set this up so that when you change the stage, again, it creates a history item over here in GoldMine. And those history items are, as I mentioned before, can be used to sort of track how long records are in each one of the stages. And that can be very useful for you. There's yet another layer which we set up recently, and we actually had to do a little bit of extra work to have this work. But we had a customer the end of last year that wanted to really track in detail. In fact, they set up a whole sales process around tracking in detail how much time each prospect was in each of the different sales stages. And the reason they wanted to analyze that was they wanted to figure out where in the sales process are our prospects falling through, deciding that they're not going to buy. What stage are they tending to get stuck in and stay for longer than we want to? What techniques can we use to just move them from stage 3 to stage 4 based on what we can do by examining who spent a long time in stage 3 and 4 versus who did not? Which sales reps are having trouble moving people from stage 3 to stage 4? Which sales reps are, for a given sales rep, are they getting better or worse at moving things from 3 to 4? Is there something about our product? Can we look at one product versus another and where those get caught up? So there's a lot of potentially really useful sales management information in there if you keep track of these stages. And so what I started to say was we had somebody, I'm sorry?
I'm interrupting you. I have a question. If you could briefly show the stages again.
Oh, yes. Okay. So there is a what I started to mention is that we actually built an extra trigger in GoldMine that when the stages changed here, they didn't just create a history log item. They actually would update update the tasks level within the opportunity. And I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to guess whoever needed this got it or got a screenshot of it. And I'm going to go ahead and generate this. Oh, got to put in a name for the opportunity. So what we did, and I won't go into this one in too much detail because it's only going to be relevant to those who are interested in doing this sort of thing, but what we did was every time a user goes in here and changes a stage, we are able to add a task that basically shows the beginning of the previous stage, the date they were in the previous stage, how many days they were in it, and what the ending date of it was, and then visually over here within the Gantt chart here, it actually showed for each opportunity how long was this lead in each one of their in each one of the stages. And they use that information in aggregate to figure out, as I was saying before, the average number of days they're in each of the stages, and doing that dependent on which product they're selling them. And it's actually a fairly complex solution, but the result of it was that they got a much better picture of, from a sales management standpoint, how many sales reps do we need to sell this product in any given year, and what should the expectations be for measuring how they're doing, and for really managing and monitoring the sales reps' activity. So those are just a bunch of examples of places where you can keep the stage and why you would want to do that. I'll pause here, Carnegie, just in case there's any questions that have come up.
I was getting ready to interrupt you there.
Okay.
Patty is asking, can the stages be accessed through a forecasted sale, or do I have to use the opportunity tracker?
Okay, and no, you don't. It's either one. You can do the opportunity one this way, or you can use the forecasted sale. Of course, is right here, and that's where I was just talking about. If you wanted to, you could use the activity code here as your stage. By the way, these forecasted sales are also linked potentially to the opportunities, so you can get them in both places. I would say if you're not prepared to use the activity code here as your stage tracker, it is also possible. We have had customers who actually put it right here in the notes. If you do that, in order to make it reportable, you're going to need to do it in a very, very standardized way, so that your MasterMine report will know exactly where to look to get that code out of here, and we can coach you on how to do that. We do find that because of the fact that in GoldMine forecasted sale records are not expandable, you can't define your own related fields. Sometimes people do want to use the notes as essentially a series of either one or a series of additional fields, and we can parse those out from the notes for reporting purposes. So all that is possible. Any other questions there?
Another one just popped up. How do you log a task when the stage changes? Is that a setting?
Logging a task that I was just describing in opportunities, that's something that we actually set up custom for a customer of ours. We're actually using a SQL trigger for that. And if you would like for us to talk with you about it and help to set you up with that, we can do that with you as well. But we're using a SQL trigger that, and triggers are a little bit tricky, because you want to have those changes not only update the database, you also need to have it take care of the GoldMine housekeeping in the back end so that it doesn't mess up your synchronizing and so on. So if you want to do a thing like that, let us know, and we'll talk to you one-on-one on it. Okay, I don't see any other questions there.
Yeah, there's no others there.
Okay, so let's go on to the more interesting part, which is the actual tracking or the actual reporting part of this. So I'm going to, and actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch over because I'm not confident that I've actually got stage information in here. Yep, I didn't. I'm going to go over and show you from another database here. Okay. So, and I meant to be right here on my, okay, so I'm on, this is just my record in this database. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up a report. Now, this is what I'm going to do is start with a report of that is really just a raw extract of this GM stage field. So this is actually from our database here, and I'm going to show you our database broken out by GoldMine stage. So it's really just a regular main contacts report that includes that field. I did a little bit of extra work with it just to kind of get it set up for today. And the one I want is this one here. Oh, it's in the original state. Okay. So this is, as I said, just a main contacts report. It's got one field in here. It's red. That's what indicates, of course, that this is a user-defined field at the contact level, where the blue ones are the original contact level fields. And as you can see, we've got a pretty large database in here. We've got 15,411 records in our database. And just on a sort of a raw basis, I've pulled in the MM stage field. Had I not pulled it in yet, we would just see the 15,411. And this is it, of course, with the detail in it. Now, over the years, as you can see, we have a really, really long list of stages in our database. It's an unusually long list. In fact, it's one that I often don't recommend to people. You can see that there have been over time slightly different ways or different meanings for different ones of the codes in here, and as a result of that, the database itself actually has more than just the exact list of possibilities that you see in our lookup list. And when you go into a field in your database, chances are you're going to see that as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about techniques for handling this kind of situation. And my first point with this is to say, if you've got MasterMine and you've got a lot of possible values for a field, that doesn't mean that field is unusable just because a long list of them shows up when you do the report. MasterMine actually does make it fairly easy for you to group things, and you can either group them by content, or you can group them by just putting them here, sort of visually laying them out in front of yourself, and putting them into groups together. So for example, in our case, actually, we have categories and subcategories. So our categories from 0 to 10, for example, is the category that we saw on the other screen there, is dead. If it starts with 0, whether it's 01, 02, 09, etc., that's our dead category, but we have a further explanation about why they're dead. If they're unlikely, they're between 10 and 20, they're also they count as a 10 in a sense, because they're unlikely, but we have some more specific information about why they are unlikely, and so on down the line for each part of this. Now, in terms of MasterMine techniques for handling this, of course, you have various ways to go. One is to just simply take everything from 0 to 9 and put them in a group together, and call this my 0 dead group. And likewise, you can do the same thing with your 10 to 19, and I'm actually going to go through this for a reason here, just for illustrative purposes. And I'm not going to go through our entire list, but I'm going to take our 20s, put those in a group together. Suspect, it's actually prospect, I should have said. So, and as you can see, I'm just quickly highlighting them and putting them into a group, and this will be the last part that I do here. Oh, shoot, that was supposed to be suspect. Let me do this. All the way up through there. Okay, and then the point of doing this is basically this. So here I've categorized them, right? But it's still the same long list that it was before, except that now I can roll these up and only look at the parts that are relevant to me. So if what I'm interested in, when I say roll up, I don't mean rolling up and down on the screen, of course. I mean actually roll up the information into a single row. So I can take my dead ones. For the moment, I'm not interested in why they're dead. I just want to get them out of the way because they're dead. So I'm going to roll up all of those into one. Now I know that there's 4,000 of them. That's useful to know that 4,000 out of my 15,000 are in the dead category. I'm rolling up the unlikely ones. Those are in the also in the they're in the unlikely category. Put my suspects together. I could likewise do the same thing with my prospects and my real ones and my customers and so on. So this is essentially a way to get a grip and get this down to a relatively small set of values. Now, the problem with doing it that way is that if let's say somebody goes and puts in another stage or does a typo or imports information and doesn't get it right in the stage field when they import records. Well, the result of that's going to be that new values show up at the bottom of the list. They won't be within these groups because to be in this group, you have to have been one of the values in here. You have to have been here at the time we grouped them. So there's actually a little bit better way to do this. And I'm going to get off of this technique thing here in a moment, but I just wanted to kind of pass along this idea. So another really good way to handle this, and this is actually a little bit new with version 7 now because of the fact that you can add fields that you neglected to bring in when you first made the report. You can bring in another field. Now, at the moment, what I'm intending to do here is not pull in a whole nother field that I didn't have here before. My intention is to just pull in sort of a pseudo field that really is just the first character of my stage. And when I do that, what you can imagine is for all the ones that start with 0, it's just going to be a 0 value in this new field, in the stage category. So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to choose, well, actually, I'm going to first identify that's a user-defined field, so I'm going to pull it from contact 2. And I'm going to come down here and get the stage field. And rather than pull the entire value here, I've got the expression right here where I can get to it. So I'm going to say, let's do the left one character from there. And we're going to call the field stage category. I just kind of wanted to show you this because this is a pretty neat way to pull things together even if you don't have a whole field that indicates what you need to do. So again, this is going to pull just the leftmost character from the stage field. It creates it. And now I've got my categories all automatic. And what's not only is that better because it's faster and easier, but it's also automatic. So anytime a new stage enters my system, that as long as that first character starts with a 0, it'll wind up here. If it's a 2, it'll wind up here, and so on. So we actually then have the ability to roll all these up. And in fact, I can even take the stage field out of here. And it didn't alphabetize them. Why didn't it alphabetize them? I'm not sure, but I'll just automatically make them go that way. Oh, it did alphabetize them, but I've got a space before the 1 there. No, I don't. All right, I can't say why 1 seems to be out of order there, but we'll deal with that another time. Now, of course, you can change the labels in here and do your stage analysis that way, or focus in on only the ones that are, let's take our 2s and call them suspect, and our 3s and call them prospect, and our 4s and call them qualified, and then let's say the 5 and 6 are customers, whatever. But maybe I can just do my stage analysis then based on whichever parts of it that I wanted to work with. So from here, let's make another group and say these are all my pre-sale active prospects, and so now I'm getting even more of a hierarchy here. But now I can take this and use this for my analysis purposes. I only want the pre-sale active ones. Now I can do my stage analysis. How do they break down by sales rep? Put them across this way maybe. And by the way, I probably need to do some other filtering in here. One of the things that I need to do in our database, we've got end users as well as lots of other possible account types in our database, I really am only interested in the ones that are end users or potential end users, so I might want to filter on that. Do an analysis, in this case, by who the responsible account rep is. If they're in these categories, they're still theoretically active, and I can go and work with those. If I need to also see them by the source of the lead, that's another approach. Or if I want to see them by the status, we actually have a secondary field that indicates status. So in our database, we've got contact type, status, as well as stage, status being a more broad one. And usually the statuses should agree broadly with the stages, but in this case, we've got different ways of breaking them down. So I might want to just take the ones, let's say, where the status is active, or where the status is, in this case, prospect, or some version of prospect, and so on. Just so that I can, again, dig in and get at the specific parts of the database that I need to work, that I want to work with. Finally, I'm going to add just one more thing on this, and that is breakdown of your prospects, again by stage, but by the date that they were added to the database. And this is using that date grouping functionality. So I've pulled in the create on field for when they were added. I'm going to group the create on field by years and months, and that way I can see for most recent leads most recently added leads, where are they in the stage. So I might want to just take the ones that were added to our database, let's say, in certain years. I'm going to go in here and actually just turn off those and say, oh, well, where are our leads that were added, let's say, in the last 3 years? And we don't care about what month they were added. So, there's an overview of our prospects. It's not a large number of prospects, but it's kind of gives us an idea of where they are if they are in one of these 3 lower stages. I just, for illustrative purposes, I didn't include the other stages. I've just got those 3. But you kind of get the idea that you should be able to easily identify the segment of the database that you want to do your stage analysis for using your filtering and grouping, and then just display the part of it that you need to use. So I'm quickly running out of time here, and I wanted to show you a couple of other examples of reports. I didn't want to get into so much how we build this as just ideas for how to display this stuff. So where I wanted to wind up here was actually with just a rep by an account rep by stage report for our end user prospects that are pre-sale, and that basically would be that report. With obviously more stages or different stages in your own individual, your way of working with it. Okay, so that's one example. Then I wanted to pull in, actually I wanted to show you the example of a report that we did that used the opportunity stages, and this will be one, I believe this will be one that that actually used the tasks as stages, to just give you some ideas for how we were able to break these down. So, and I'm not going to go through how we build these or any techniques with this. I just want to talk about how this, what sorts of information this gives you. So this was, actually I'm going to simplify this one by one step here. So this is a report of average days in stage. So again, we tracked in opportunities, on the opportunity side, what stages they were in, but we also tracked the history of when the stage changed. So at any given time, I mean, just, so you're oriented within GoldMine, at any given time, a single account is only in one stage. The real issue is what, for the purposes of this report, the real issue is when were they in previous stages, and how long were they in those stages, and what did it take to move them out, to move them along the sales process. And so that's what this kind of report was meant to elicit for the users. So this tells us, just for a set of leads for the trailing 12 months, how long, how many prospects actually completed each of these stages. Now, and excuse me, of these 4 that were suspects, all of the 4 moved on to be prospects. Only 3 of them moved on to be qualified. All 3 of those moved on to the design stage. Only 1 went to an estimate stage, 1 prototyped, and that actually is probably a verbal agreement from we probably had another verbal agreement from a sale that was moving through the process, earlier than the previous 12 months. So that's why you can sometimes have numbers like that. And so understanding and interpreting this requires some real deep thought about your sales process. So even setting it up requires some deep thought like that. So that's something to take into consideration when you decide how you're going to track things through your sales stages. I always recommend do the simple one first. It doesn't harm you to have more information that's just not as much information as you might potentially want, and it's much easier to implement a simple staging process than a more complicated one. But this is I just want to give you an idea of some of what's possible here. So in having this, knowing, for all of our leads that pass through our sales process, here's on average how many days it was in each one of these stages. And so they tend to be longer, in this case, in the suspect stage than any other one. That's probably as you'd expect, because maybe the leads are dumped into the system and they tend to sit there before somebody actually calls them up and moves them along. But this is enterprise-wide for every product that we've got out there. Adding the product field in here, and this is just the opportunity product field. It's just what's the name of the product that's in the opportunity record itself. Adding that dimension in here allows us to break down by product how many days on average do we spend in each one of the sales stages. Now you're getting to where you can actually coach salespeople or work with the salespeople to figure out, okay, why is it that for this particular product we tend to spend a long time this is a very small sample of data, of course. You would have much larger numbers and more significant numbers, therefore, from your database. But why do you tend to spend for a certain product a long time in the qualified stage, where for another one they tended to move through there very quickly? Maybe it's quality of the leads, maybe it's sales technique, maybe it's something about that product. All things that you need to figure out if you're going to really know your business and improve it over time. So that is a kind of a whirlwind tour of stage tracking options and a couple of reports for doing this. I'm going to pause here for a moment before we go on to the next part, and Carnegie give you a chance to jump in.
Yeah, we have a question that just popped up. I'm very new to MasterMine. Can you expand to see the customer level on any given area?
The customer level. Not quite sure what we mean by customer level. Maybe post something in the question there to indicate that, or Carnegie, do you indicate the customer level?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure either. Chris, if you wouldn't mind to reply back with what you're meaning, I would appreciate that.
Can expand to see the customer level. Just broadly, let me say, you can expand to include just about any field that's in GoldMine. So if what you meant was, break this down, expand, if what you meant was, break this down by product, you could just as soon do it with source, the source field, assuming you had multiple values in there. You could even show the individual companies. You could show, I don't really know what the business field is here. Oh, this is the...
Yeah, he wrote back, I suppose if there is a field pulled in for the customer, drill down to that level. Yes, looks like you're on the right track.
Oh, yeah, okay, so that is exactly right. So yes, you can add whatever dimension you want in here, or even combination of dimensions, because I just put one in here, but we could actually put in a series of levels, and unfortunately each one of these only has one value in it, but you kind of have to imagine this works like any other MasterMine report, where you can have a series of them, and then within each series, or within each item of there, a series of sales reps, and within each sales rep, a series of sources, and so on. So this can get broken down to finer and finer detail, all very easily just by dragging the fields in. Any other questions or comments?
None have come up. Oh, we have somebody's hand raised.
That's an interesting one.
Yes.
I don't know what you can do about
find
that.
out what. Yes.
Oh.
Michelle, you had your hand raised. If you wouldn't mind to send me a chat or post a question. Okay, she's working on it.
Okay. And while she's doing that, why don't I go ahead and commence with our wrap up here. And Michelle, I'll be happy to come back, or I'll be happy to answer any other questions that come up. So please feel free to go ahead and put them in, folks. But I want to respect your time as well. So I'm going to, I think anyway, I'm going to put up our. Try that again. There we go. So I've just got our sort of wrap-up slides here, and then I'll come back for any additional questions that are there. So next month, as I mentioned, pardon me?
And prize drawing.
And the prize drawing, yes. So next month, as I mentioned, our session is going to be not so focused on one particular topic, and maybe not so much on the sales end of it, but really allowing you the opportunity to post your questions and get whatever you want answered, for no charge, anything that is potentially relevant to more than just you. So so for those of you who just felt that this session maybe was big on concepts but not so good on training, and you'd like to get a little more training, this is an opportunity to do that, or to really to sort of get yourself moving forward a little better using MasterMine. We usually find that people really like a tips and tricks opportunity, so this is sort of your way to do a kind of a self-guided tips and tricks thing. And really, just go ahead and post it. No question is too trivial. I'll be happy to just illustrate it in a sort of generic GoldMine database. If it at least has potential interest to more users than you, that's the best thing. And I'll answer as many as the time allows. I'll take questions that are submitted throughout that presentation as well, and depending on how many we get, we could even extend it to the next one if there's a lot of interest in doing this. If there's not, then we'll go back to more specific topics. And we will have, we won't have a poll open. We usually have done a poll on the MasterMine users group on LinkedIn earlier months. We won't have a poll this time, but do feel free to post a discussion with any of your questions. And if it's an interesting one, again, we can pick up on it and use it in these sessions. You might also, if you do post something that is specifically relevant to you, or that we think we've got some particularly good insight on, we might even come back and give you an answer for before June 20th, which is the time of our next meeting. So put this one on your calendar, June 20th at 11 a.m., and you will get an invitation soon. So let's move on to the more fun thing, which is our drawing. This is for a free 1-hour support session with me personally. You can use this hour for any MasterMine-related purpose that you want. Could be report writing, data updating and massaging, data analysis, system process stuff that relates to, what do I need to do in GoldMine to report X from in MasterMine reports, or just training on specific functionality inside GoldMine. All of that's available. By the way, if you don't happen to win the free hour today, know that you can. This is one of the major things that we do on a day-to-day basis is set up appointments with users to help you move along, and we do it for a fee, but it costs a lot less to have an expert show you how to do something, oftentimes, than it does to use up a lot of your own time or frustration doing it incorrectly or doing it in some inefficient way. I almost always find that even for people that have used MasterMine for years and years, there's always some way that looking at your reports, we can find ways to do them more effectively, more efficiently, something like that. So I believe Carnegie is probably finished setting up to do her random selection from our current attendees. Is that right, Carnegie?
I got all names in a bowl and ready to go.
Okay. Then please
Can
proceed.
you hear the bowl shaking? Okay. And the winner is, I'm going to mess up this name, I know it, Amparo Centoyo.
Ah, okay.
Congratulations, and sorry if I messed up your name, but congratulations.
All right, so Amparo is the name?
Yes.
Okay, and we should be able to identify what company you are from your email address, but just in case we don't, we'd appreciate, Amparo, if you would send us an email and just let us know who you're with and how best to follow up with you, and I will set up that 1 hour time to get online with you and go into your database. And if I think we'll sort of leave it at that. If you want to know more about support options, the address on our website, it's mastermind.net, obviously, and the top menu item there is user support. So this is not a slash here. This is just meant as a divider, so you can see where to find our user support options. Okay, I'll put up finally our contact information here on the last slide, and let's see if there are any other questions that have come up or things that people want to post. Or, by the way, your comments are welcome as well, even if you don't have a specific question. If it's just, this would be more useful for me if, please send us those kinds of things as well. We'll do what we can to help you. So Carnegie, let's see, do we have any other questions that have come up?
Nope, looks like we're clear.
Okay. Well, we are just in under our allotted 1 hour time. I hope that this session has been useful for you. We actually had a lot of people subscribed for this meeting, so I think it's a topic of interest to a lot of people. We would love to have your feedback about how to do these things better. Especially need your feedback for the meeting a month from now, so that we get your topics of interest to you. But thank you all very much for your time today. Look forward to working with you in MasterMine online, either one-on-one or in groups. And everyone have a great day. And thank you, Carnegie.
Thank you, Rob.